As Spider-Man swung between skyscrapers, he suddenly found that his web shooters wouldn't fire. The skyscrapers rushed past as Spider-Man plunged helplessly through the air with nothing to break his fall. Moments later, Spider-Man lay sprawled beneath the wall, unable to cling to bricks that had once held him effortlessly. For the first time, Peter could no longer trust the body that had always kept him alive. Piece by piece, Peter was becoming the ordinary young man he had been before the spider bite. Peter saw the loss as his chance to reclaim the ordinary life Spider-Man had taken from him. Behind those familiar lenses, Peter looked like an ordinary college student again. The sirens no longer called Peter into action. He calmly finished his burger and left the chase to the police. Soon, Peter's neglected textbooks were open again, and he was finally catching up in class. For once, Peter could make plans without every siren dragging him away. With no Spider-Man to fear, criminals began acting as if the city belonged to them. Now every distant siren reminded Peter that someone was facing danger without him. Suddenly, thick black smoke began billowing from the building beside Peter. Peter's hand froze at his collar. There was no red and blue suit hidden underneath anymore. Moments later, Peter was deep inside the burning building beside a trapped girl. Peter got the girl safely outside just as the building erupted behind them. Saving one girl was all Peter could manage. Without his powers, the others inside were beyond his reach. The lives still trapped inside turned Peter's rescue into a hollow victory. The people lost in the fire now felt like the price of the ordinary life Peter had chosen. For once, Aunt May wasn't handling the chores alone. Usually, lazy Milo had stepped in, leaving Peter stunned. Spider-Man's example had inspired even lazy Milo to get up and lend Aunt May a hand. Milo's small act showed Peter that Spider-Man could still inspire good even when he was gone. Peter could no longer pretend the city's suffering was someone else's responsibility. The gap between the rooftops became Peter's first test. Peter launched himself off the roof, leaving solid ground behind as he sailed toward the opposite building. The opposite ledge shot out of reach as Peter dropped between the buildings. Peter was ready to return, but his body refused to follow. Sometime later, the world suddenly turned hazy through the glasses that had been keeping Peter's vision clear. With the glasses off, every detail snapped into razor-sharp focus, just as it had after the spider bite. Soon, Peter walked out of the newspaper office with his red and blue suit back in his hands. Just as Spider-Man returned to action, a train came thundering down the tracks completely out of control. Ahead, the rail stopped at the cliff's edge, sending the runaway train straight toward open air. Spider-Man threw himself onto the train's nose, planting his feet down as its final barrier against the drop. The massive train dragged Spider-Man along without losing any speed. The cliff was racing closer, leaving Spider-Man only seconds to stop the train. Spider-Man fired webs into both sides of the street, pulling the lines taut behind him like giant brakes. Masonry rained onto the tracks as the torn web lines whipped Peter dangerously close to the train's wheels. A split second later, Peter was back on the train's nose, clear of the wheels but still hurtling toward the cliff. With the cliff dead ahead, a fresh fan of web lines spread from Peter's wrists toward both sides of the track. The new web anchors held firm, wrenching Peter's arms backward as the train's enormous momentum tore through his body. Even as his grip began to fail, Peter clung to the webbing and refused to let go. At last, the train shuddered to a halt, with the cliff looming directly ahead.